Wow, you guys. All right. Given that I have some kids within my own neighborhood who are sketchy as fuck, and right around the same age as this Eric kid, the freckled face killer, um, and they are being given free reign to terrorize their neighbors. Um, oh my god, with this story, you guys, I'm not gonna cover the whole thing. I'm just gonna cover part of it.
Things and articles that I found online that said Eric would hurt animals and would do stuff like that too. And so it's just so confusing because
just in comparison, some of the things that I've been hearing the boys that come around my property, and some of the things I've heard them yell is, I'm gonna strangle you, drown him, drown him, drown him. Jenna, come out and play. Jenna, come outside. Junior high, prepubescent voices.
have some people, and I don't know if it's just a grandparents thing, that's like, oh, he's so sweet. He wanted hugs and kisses, and maybe he did really love them. Or that one neighbor that he would cut the grass, but then you would have like these anger outbursts and trying to set a kitchen on fire. Or, I don't know. It seemed like different people got different versions of Eric. But everything would change for Eric in that small town forever in August of 1993. On August 2nd of 1993, little Derek Roby was getting ready to go to a program. Now, little Derek Roby was 4 years old, big, bright eyes, blonde hair, athletic, playful, funny, loved his family. His father's name is Dale and his mother's name is Doreen. He was the oldest of 3 children, but at this point in time, in 1993, he had one little brother who was 18 months old, and Derek loved his little brother. He would kiss his little brother and talk to his little brother. He was also very independent little 4-year-old. He would go fishing with his dad, and he was a huge daddy's boy as well as a mama's boy, but he loved his daddy. They were so super close. Well, typically, little Derek would go to this program in the afternoons. And on this day, on August 2nd of 1993, his mother was dealing with his 18-month-old little brother who was fussy and kind of in a tizzy. And 4-year-old Derek said, "Mommy, I'm going to go. I'm going to go by myself." And she said she never let him walk by himself. But on this day, she thought, okay, she was overwhelmed. She was in a tizzy. And I know y'all are all going, oh, he was 4 years old. Whether it's right or wrong, whether you would do that or I would do that, I want you guys to keep in mind this is 1993, okay? This is a small...
No. We already had Adam Walsh happen in the late 70s by now. I had my son in 94, and I'll tell you straight up, there is no reasonable parent who's going to allow a 4-year-old to walk somewhere by themselves. A 4-year-old? Nope. I definitely am sorry for her loss, but she has to take some accountability for that. She should have put that 18-year-old in a stroller and walked with him. That's some bullshit.
Community where everybody knows everybody, and for him to walk to this program meant he went out his house onto the sidewalk on the same side of the street and just walked down the street a little bit. He didn't have to cross over no stop signs. He didn't have to do anything. Didn't have to cross over the road. And again, everybody knew everybody. And so on this...
Nope. I was a single mom. I lived in an affluent white community. Granted, I didn't have a lot of money, but I did actually investigate how many sex offenders lived in my neighborhood and shit. And I did not start letting my son walk to and from school until he was in the 5th grade. Give me a break. 4? Fuck's sake.
Day, his mother said, okay, and let him go. And she would regret that decision for the rest of her life.
Yep.
As little Derek began to walk down the sidewalk on the way to his program, feeling all independent, taking big steps, Eric came riding by on his bicycle. Now, Eric was in a summer camp and he had gotten kicked out this day for bad behavior. They told him you needed to leave, so he hopped on his bike to ride home. Being mad and angry, riding home, he saw little blonde hair, super cute, super adorable 4-year-old Derek walking down the road, and he pulled his bike up next to him. He ended up talking little Derek into following him into the woods to play. Now, you guys, any of y'all that have children, you know, these little ones look up to the bigger ones, right? Like
the big kids, right? They're one of the big kids. They're so super cool. The big kids, right? Yeah, I remember this as a child. I'm sure you all do. That there were the big kids that lived in your neighborhood that were more mature than you, and they were more capable than you, and so therefore they were cool. But I think we also remember that the big kids were not always nice to us, you know? Sometimes they played pranks on us. Sometimes they did shit to us, right?
you got the bigger brother, the bigger sister, and says, hey, I want to play with you. Boy, they drop everything and then they go. I could just imagine how this little boy got off track thinking this big cool kid on a bicycle wants to play with him in the woods. However, when they got into the woods, Eric showed little 4-year-old Derek to death. After that, he took a big rock. He dug this rock up that was in all this mush. And it was said, I read one article that said the rock weighed 25 pounds. I mean, that's a huge rock. And crashed it on the baby, the 4-year-old boy's head. And then after he did all kinds of stuff to his body, it had cuts on it. He went into the little boy Derek's lunch bag that he had with him, where he had a banana and he had some Kool-Aid packets, the little sugar things. And he took the sugar Kool-Aid packets and he poured them into the little boy's cuts. Then he SA'd the little boy. Okay, the 13-year-old SA'd the little 4-year-old. And then he ended up doing other things to his body and leaving him and going home. Around this time is when...
This is why I'm so concerned about what's happening with the young boys in this community that are being raised by this very aggressive man who keeps throwing them around the pool, encouraging them to be super rowdy, encouraging them to harass me and yell things up at me. Is that by encouraging that sort of aggressive, violent behavior, they will ultimately, more than likely, rape young girls in high school. Even if it's just date rape, bitches. They are teaching these boys to be disrespectful to women. Not only to me, but to the little girls that they show up to the pool with, and to the junior high girls that are riding around on bikes. I mean, I've seen them being disrespectful to them as well. And it's scary that this is the culture that this fellow and probably some of his friends are cultivating in my community right now. And the fact that I had to file a police report on Saturday night because they were banging on my door, it sounded like they were trying to break into my house. And we saw them on doorbell cam. It was 2 teens that came with that fellow's group. So I don't know what the relationship is there, but I've been told that man has 7 children, and it seems that every time he comes to the pool across the street from me, he is throwing children into the pool and totally looking the other way when they yell violent things like, I'm gonna strangle her, drown him. This dude never corrects his children when they're yelling very scary things. And he himself yells shit up at me too. So I don't understand why Orange County Sheriff hasn't stepped in, why they haven't called Protective Services, why they haven't done more to actually investigate this. But this is where the path goes. And apparently I'm not the only person complaining about this in the neighborhood. There's somebody else making some police calls too.
And Derek's mother said she just felt a panic. She was like, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. So she went to go look for her baby to make sure he made it to the program, and he didn't. At this point, she went and called the cops. The cops came. They started a full-on investigation. Everybody in the community was looking for this baby because, again, small community. Everybody knows everybody, including Eric. Eric was even out looking for this little boy. The cops came and questioned Eric and everybody else, and he just stood and talked to them. He said at one point he saw little Derek walking, and the investigators thought that maybe he knew something, but they definitely did not think that he did anything. And the whole entire community is looking for an adult.
Everybody, including myself, thought it was an adult. And how could anybody do such a terrible, terrible thing?
They're all thinking, like, what monster is in our midst here, right? Like, everybody knows everybody. I've said it a million times. So you guys got to think, like, they're looking at each other. Like, is it Bob at the corner store? Like, is it Martha at the library? Like, somebody did this. If it was somebody else that wasn't in the community, somebody would have saw them. So it is one of you, right?
Yeah, and that's why it should have been very easy to deduce that it was this kid, because he's 13. He just got evicted from his summer camp program for behavioral issues. He has a history of behavioral issues, and he's already stated that he saw the 4-year-old walking. Like, he had contact with this child. That should have been a no-brainer that it was him.
The mother is feeling devastated. She's crying out on the news saying, somebody please help, help me find out what happened to my boy, da 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 da. Eric's mother said she had a gut feeling that her son knew something. So she began to question him. This is a couple days later. She said that when she questioned him, Eric turned to her, looked at her, and said, I did it. Now, she didn't even think he did it. She just thought maybe he saw who did it. Eric's mother, Tammy, said she lost control. She was screaming, she was crying, she was losing it. She was asking him why, and he kept saying, I don't know. He started crying. And so she took him down to the station, and this is where he confessed.
I got him by himself. I strangled him. I hit him over the head with a rock numerous times and poured Kool-Aid on him. And I became the bully that I hated in school. I became the individual who dished out pain. They thought that I knew who did it, or I'd seen who had done it. But the person they were looking for is me. I couldn't hold it in anymore.
They arrested him, little 13-year-old Eric, and they released into the news media that they had a confession from the killer. So at this point, all the news media outlets are circling around trying to get a glimpse of who this man or woman is that did this to this baby. The parents, everybody, they're outside the courthouse crying. And when they bring the little boy out in handcuffs to transport him, everybody gasps. They see a little redhead boy with glasses on and freckles on his face, and nobody knows what to think or do. Like, a kid doing this to another kid. It was so hard for this community and the parents and all the parents, and the gruesome details of what he did to this 4-year-old was almost too much for them all to bear. Now, they ended up going to trial. The defense really tried to use that epilepsy medication that the mom had taken, but the jury did not accept that. And they also tried to use his childhood and being bullied, because when he was giving his confession, he said that he wanted this perfect little boy to feel, he wanted to hurt him. And he also told them that he knew that he was defenseless, and that's why he did it. Like, the people that not interrogated, they only had to question him. He told them the people that listened to his confession had cold chills because they could not believe this 13-year-old little boy was talking like this and saying these things. Like, it was like a nightmare. But he ended up getting found guilty, and they sentenced him to 9 years to life in prison. So, of course, the mother and the father are crying, like, 9 years to life. Like, he should never have a chance to get out in 9 years, especially. But the courts are saying, like, he's a kid, he can change and da. So he gets into prison for the 9 years, and every 2 years after that 9 years, he had a parole hearing. And the biological family of that little boy that got murdered had to come back to court every 2 years, okay? Until this year, Eric was denied parole 10 times. So now that he is 43 years old, he is being released, and he is going to be in New York. He's going to be on parole. And he did a bunch of interviews saying that, like, he was a miserable child back then and how he's changed. And the family of the little boy who was murdered say that they are relieved in a way because they are tired of having to go back to parole every 2 years and beg to keep him in there. So now it's just done. They can move on with that part. But they're also concerned because they feel like he could be just deeply disturbed and evil and not something that you grow out of. And so I wanted to ask you guys, what do y'all think? What do you...
The icon. So
ask you guys, what do y'all think? What do you think? Do you think that something that gruesome is something that you can grow out of? Now, I will say this. Eric has only had, in all of his years in prison, I think it's 27 years, 3 write-ups, the whole 27 years, and they were all minor infractions. They were all like small stuff, not fighting or violence or anything like that. And so, but then again, we know that Eric was never the type that was going to stand up to bullies or people bigger than him or stronger than him, like could be in prison, right? He went after smaller, weaker. So I don't know if I'm too impressed by the fact that he didn't like do anything to anybody in prison, because I'm just not. But I will be interested to see how his life is now. But this just creeps me out even more because... And now we're into my opinion of the situation. When I said the part that you would be surprised maybe is the fact that he did just get out after 10 parole hearings. This is what I mean when I say that I don't personally trust even children around my children. Everything says, like, you got to watch.
Yeah, this is absolutely true. When my son was in Cub Scouts in the early aughts, I went to visit the former committee chair because she was transferring the knowledge to me, and her son, he was an adopted son, and my son were in their backyard playing in the pool, and her son tried to drown my son. You have to watch at all times because some kids are violent. Some kids are fucking violent. And he was dunking him and holding him under the water. And I had to go out there and yell about it and get him out of the pool. You have to watch. You have to be vigilant at all times.
Adults or strangers, mostly. Like, that's the undertone of our society, is like a boogeyman is going to get our kids. But typically 95% of all perpetrators that, kidnap a child or something like that, or touch them in a way, are people that are trusted, family members, friends, school officials, church officials, people that we know and that our children trust. Like, that's what should be plastered all over everything, right? Is that people that you know and trust, and people that your children trust, but also children, okay? And I'm not saying that there's a mega billion amount of children like Eric out there running around, but I always say, like, you don't know what's going on in a child's home, right? Like, you want to let your child go spend the night over at their friend's house, and you went and met their parents. Hi, how are you? Okay, I'm just meeting you. You don't know what their daddy is really like. You don't know what their mama is really like. You don't know if they have an older brother, a younger brother, an older sister, a younger sister. You don't know what their friend does. Maybe grandpa, was a little too friendly with them, And then they feel like they want to be a little friendly with your child. You know, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't trust it. My baby don't spend the night with nobody other than my in-laws. That's it. That's the only place he spends the night at. That's just how it is. We can play all day long. Now, I do let kids come and spend the night at my house sometimes, but that's also at our house. And I do the best I can, y'all. But we can play all day long. What, y'all want to go to the beach? Y'all want to go to a theme park? Y'all want to go to the park?
Even if it's at your own house, it's not like you can just like go in your bedroom and let them hang out in the like living room or something for their sleepover. You got to be checking on those kids. I mean, my son had a friend come stay over the night once, and in the middle of the night, he opened the door and walked out. I'm responsible for that bullshit. I'm responsible for the fact that this kid just fucking walked out of my house and now I don't know where he is. Right? He ended up walking back to his own apartment in the middle of the goddamn night. He could have been abducted. Like, I was responsible for him at that point. You gotta watch kids at all times. Like, at least be checking in. Like, come in, check in on them, make sure that everything's going well. That kid literally got up in the middle of the fucking night and walked out of my house. And like I said, I had already done like a sex offender search in the area, and I knew we had sex offenders that lived in my apartment complex. Fortunately, he made it back to his own apartment, but like seriously, that was like a heart attack moment.
Park, y'all want to roast hot dogs on the grill? You want to roast hot dogs on the fire pit? Come on over, let's do it. Y'all want to stay and, roast marshmallows after dark? I'll take you home afterwards. Like, that's just how it is. That's how I am. Because you don't know. And the innocence of children, sometimes things happen and it takes a piece of them that you can't get back. Doesn't mean that children can't grow up and have a successful, loving life. I feel like I am one of them, and a lot of y'all are out there too. But also, if you know better, you got to do better. What do you guys think? Do you think about, the potential of other children doing things? Or do you just think about adults? Or have you always been that way? Or, what do you think? Do you think that Eric should have had another chance and is released? Or do you think, no, his parents are without their child, and so he can be in there too? He's not dead. I mean, he's still got a life in there. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section.
I believe in rehabilitative justice. He's been in jail for 30 years. Hopefully he was getting therapy while this is going on, but I don't know what was available to him. But I think he deserves a chance to... I don't know how he's going to do it, though. He probably did get education while he's in there, right? He probably was able to at least get a high school diploma while he was in there. But it's like, what do you do now? How are you going to live? Is he going to be able to live in society after going from age 13, being detained at age 13, and not being released until age 43, right? So he has basically only the skills that were provided for him inside of a prison system, which is potentially like a high school diploma, maybe therapy. I don't know. I don't know if they provide therapy. And, probably some menial jobs that he was doing to earn some commissary money. What a terrifying situation. I don't know if they have, programs for prisoners on the outside, to rebuild their lives either. I don't know how that works. I'm not sure how that works. But I mean, the takeaway is, parents, you can't be just silly. You can't be just neglectful and stupid or rowdy and, not thinking about the life skills that you're teaching your kids. because and you especially need to be observant for any sort of emotional problems that need to be addressed in therapy and things like everybody made mistakes here. Obviously, Eric's mom made mistakes by not doing more to address his emotional breakdowns that he had been experiencing leading up to this. The 4-year-old's mom made a huge mistake by saying, "Oh yeah, you can walk to your program by yourself. You'll be fine." In '93, give me a break. Adam Walsh had already happened by then. That's gosh, that's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking. But it's also heartbreaking for me to watch how parents in this neighborhood are treating their own children and totally looking the other way when they're saying very violent things. They're acting very rowdy, not observing community rules, harassing neighbors, banging on my door, making it sound like they're trying to break into my house. It's disturbing. And I wish the Orange County Sheriff would do more to get Child Protective Services involved rather than be like, not my job. Well, that's why we say defund the police and send the appropriate services. That's where the whole thing comes from.